Hey guys, welcome back to another day in the shop. This is the start of part 2 of the LS swap on the 66 C10. And in the last video, we ran the wiring harness, went over a few things, and we're getting to the point now where I have to finish the wiring for the harness and get everything set up. So before I get started on that, I wanted to go over a few little things and explain what you have to do to get this running. This can be more specific to this truck, but you can use this on whatever vehicle you're working on. So I did get the front cap on. It's looking pretty good. I had my wife help me put that on and got everything. I'm getting close to being able to get it started, but I wanted to go over this harness and what you have to do. Now with BP Automotive harness, in their instructions, they state that it is a 2-wire hookup to get your car running. That is somewhat accurate. It's not completely accurate, but I'm just going to go over the wires that you have to hook up to get this thing going. So, as you saw in the last video, I showed you some of the wires. I got pretty much everything hooked up. I do not have the mass airflow sensor hooked up yet. That goes in between the throttle body and the air cleaner. You don't have to have that hooked up to get your motor running. So as far as from where the grommet comes out of the firewall forward, there are 3 wires that have to be hooked up. Now, you saw in the first LS swap video I did that there is a red wire that goes down to your starter battery post. That has to be hooked up. And you also need a battery cable running from it to your battery or whatever your battery source is. I got battery cable in. I like to use the stock LS block there. It's got a nice little terminal block there that you can hook all your power up to that you need to. I take the factory battery cable that runs from the starter and I run it over to here, and there's another wire that continues to run off this on the factory harness that I always just cut off. It runs to the computer, which in the stock configuration in Silverado, Yukon, whatever, mounts over here in a big plastic box. I just cut that off and it goes nicely on that post there. And obviously the alternator runs to that. I have the main power supply. It comes off the relay here. It goes to that as well, and that supplies power to the fuse box. And I think that's about it for power. You do not need a voltage regulator. This alternator is internally regulated. So what I do on these is just make a jumper in that configuration. The middle 2 get linked together and the outer 2 get linked together. That is specific to this truck. So take that information and do whatever you want with it. Anyway, back to the harness. So you have your wire running from the harness to your starter, and you have your battery power hooked to the starter as well. Then you have the 2 ground cables. Those can be bundled together. You hook those to the back of the head. So I use the driver's side head. There's bolt holes there. You can see the opposite, like on this head. That's what the back of the head looks like on the other side. So you have to have those ground wires hooked up. I run my negative cable from a battery to the frame, and then a ground strap from the frame to that head. It's not part of the harness, but you need to make sure with these LS swaps that you have good grounds. I might even run another ground just to be on the safe side and make sure I have good grounds everywhere. So those 3 wires under the hood from the harness, starter, and then the 2 grounds. Now, if we go inside, we have, in the factory harness, you can see here, we've got the bundle of wires that comes out through the firewall. Now, the ones you want to be concerned with on that are the purple wire and the pink wire. The pink wire is ignition on power, and that's fairly universal through this harness. The pink usually supplies switch on voltage. So you have to tap into that. With the BP Automotive harness, it's going to be the pink wire. It should be labeled here, switched ignition. So you have to have that on. Purple wire, in your project, you might not even have to deal with this because you might already even have the signal wire from your ignition switch running to your starter. I did not, because I took that off with the factory harness and ran a new wire. I've got it ran right here. So I have to tap into that purple wire with my red wire that runs to the solenoid on the starter. So you got those two wires. Now, when they're talking about the two wires set up in this BP Automotive harness, the wires that they are referring to are these two wires here: switch ignition and then the fuel pump. So I've got a wire run from my fuel pump all the way up here. These are the two I'm concerned with. So I've got to tap into those, and then I've got to tap into those. So once I do that, I do not have the motor ready to start. The plug cables aren't here, and I've got a few other things. I've got to hook up the radiator. My fan on my radiator I bought, the tabs are broken off, so I can't hook that up yet because I've got to replace the fan on it, and I want my transmission lines run into the radiator so it doesn't just start shooting transmission fluid all over as soon as that motor starts turning over. I do have my transmission lines made up here, 6AN lines. They work great on this LS stuff. Make your own custom lengths. Do not be afraid to make 6AN lines. It is super easy, and it's not that expensive, and you don't have to go to a parts store. Save yourself some money, make your own. So what I'm going to do, I'm kind of going in blind on this truck as far as the electrical system. There was nothing in this. I've got this bundle of wires here that I haven't really investigated. I'm just going to assume this is alternator stuff off the old alternator, which we don't need. But I'm going to go ahead and hook up my wires on the inside, since I already have all these hooked up on the outside, and see what we got to work with once I get those hooked up. Also, one other thing I forgot to mention is when you're doing an LS swap, I've got my computer here. It is the 411 computer, and that's the one I have in my blue truck too. So there are a few things you have to do to the computer. Now, you don't have to do them yourself. You can, if you have a buddy that has the stuff to do it, you can have them do it. There are, if you look on Facebook Marketplace or eBay, there are places you can send your computer and get them reprogrammed, but there are a few things you have to do on your computer in order to get this LS to start up and run. Number one is going to be the VATS delete. That's the vehicle anti-theft system. You have to turn that off, disable it. It basically works where you have your little switch in your key or your chip, and if it doesn't sense that, it thinks it's stolen, won't let the motor run. I think it'll start up for a few seconds then die. You have to turn off that. That's the biggest thing. Other things you might want to get rid of, which I do, is you get rid of your evap system. I don't use that. What else? Rear O2 sensors, not run catalytic converters. There are 4 oxygen sensors on this motor. You run the front 2 that come off the headers, so you can disable that. You can also do stuff like recalibrate your speedometer for your tire size. There's a formula you can look up. Seems, or it might sound difficult. It's really not. All this stuff's really easy. So you send your computer off to somebody on eBay. They can reprogram it for you. I'm not really sure how much that is. I knew I was going to be doing other motors, so I bought the stuff to do it myself. You can buy these LS bench harnesses, 30, 40 bucks. Quality is a little iffy. Mine, the power supply wasn't enough that came with it to run the computer good, but I just bought a second power supply and wired it in, and it works fine. But in order to do this, I won't go very far into this. You can look it up online to do it yourself. But there is a ODB dongle that you plug into either your bench harness, or you can do it straight in your computer. Just make sure you have good battery power on your vehicle whenever you go to hook it up. But it's ODBX Pro. If you go to their website, I think it's odbxpro.com, you can buy this little ODB dongle. And I believe it's Bluetooth or USB. I always use the USB just because I want to make sure I've got good connectivity. You can download your bin file off your computer, which is basically all your programming inside of your computer. And then there's several programs you can run, Tuner Pro, several other ones, but you can go in there and you can change these values on this file, like to turn off the VATs, get rid of evap, turn off the O2 sensors on the back so it doesn't throw engine codes. You do that, and then you can flash the file back to your computer, and then you can get your engine to run. So I think the ODB Pro is 80 bucks, bench harness 30, 40 bucks. Just whatever. If you're going to do more than one, you might want to just invest in it. Plus, you get to learn how to do it yourself, and you can always go back and make changes if you ever need to. Don't have to pay somebody to do it for you. So it's up to you. Anyway, just want to run through that real quick before we get started with the wiring. I'm going to get this knocked out, and we will see what we got. All right, so I got those wires hooked up. As you can see, my pink and purple wire. So pink is starter power or ignition on power. Purple is going to be my wire running my starter. Got my fuel pump hooked up there. So I haven't tried it yet. I went ahead and threw about 5 gallons of gas in the gas tank. I want to see if the computer will cycle my fuel pump on, and then I'm probably bump the starter too just to make sure got that hooked up. So I haven't tried it yet. So when I turn this key, I should hear the fuel pump back here come on. So let's see what happens. All right, I heard it come on. I'll cycle it again. It is pumping fuel. That is good. Make sure I don't got any leaks coming out of the fuel rail here. Don't smell anything, don't see anything. So, like I said, we are not ready to start it yet. I still got some parts coming. Should be here tomorrow. Hoping by the end of the weekend, maybe even Saturday. Today's Thursday. Friday I get the parts in, and then I'm on call all weekend for work. So I'll have all weekend to be stuck at home to work on this thing. But we'll go ahead and just see if I've got the starter wired up right. See if I can hold this here. All right. Well, that is working. So I do have starter, I do have fuel, so that is a step in the right direction. So I guess I'm gonna just do some little stuff here and there that I need to do, and then we'll see once we get those parts in, see if we can get all those slapped on and see if we can get this thing started. All right, back next day. Got you saw everything I did yesterday, and UPS guy showed up early. He usually shows up at my house about 7 or 8 at night. He showed up early today. So I got the parts that I needed to hopefully get this thing started. So I had to put some oil in it. I've got to add some transmission fluid. Got my plug wires and my spark plug boots that I need to put on. I got the little cloth, whatever they are, since I got the headers. I don't want to melt the spark plug wires. So I'm gonna get that done. I have to, the radiator I got off eBay. It has an electric fan on it, and I need my radiator in there so I can hook up my transmission lines, so whenever I start it, it doesn't spray transmission fluid everywhere. But I need to replace the fan because all the clips are broke on the fan. So got to do that and get spark plugs on, or spark plug wires, and then I think that's about it. So I'm gonna try to get that done pretty quick. It's early afternoon. I've been smoking a brisket all day, working from home today, and when my wife gets home, we're going to hunt for morel mushrooms. So try to get that done and maybe try to get it fired up. We'll see. Okay, so I got the spark plug wires on, topped the oil off, got it all filled up. I put a little, it has transmission fluid, the converter's full, but I know when I saw him picking it up at the scrapyard, it dumped a bunch out the tail shaft. So I went ahead and put a little bit of transmission fluid in it. I can't really test it without running it and getting it hot to see where I need to fill, but got everything hooked up. Got my fire extinguisher handy and the battery cable easily accessible to pull off in case anything disastrous happens. So I'm ready for the first start, or try first start. So here we go. All right, well, I would call that a success. It's smoking pretty good. It's I think it's got probably a lot of oil in the cylinders just from being tossed around in the scrapyard, lifted by forklift and stuff, and I'm pretty sure that'll all burn off. Fairly low mileage motor. They said it had like 170 on it. That should be plenty good enough for me. It should last, LS's last a long time. And I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but I could see the crosshatch and all the cylinders still when I went in there with the bore scope. So anyway, we got it running, super easy. I'm pretty excited about that. So I guess that's going to be the end of the LS swap series. I've still got a lot of wiring to do, the gauges, all that, but I'm very happy with that. So anyway, thank you for watching my channel. Hope you enjoyed this LS swap video and seeing how easy it was. And I hope you come back and watch the other videos that I've done on this truck. So thank you again. We'll see you in the next video.